Everyone, I am back to go over some more CLO 3D. I have started in Blackboard under lectures for Thursday, April 9th, and obviously I'm still recording the videos, but the videos will be placed here. I just wanted to make sure that you see that there is another folder full of files that I need you to make sure that you download and place somewhere that is accessible so you can add them to your CLO 3D library. To do that, remember you're going to go to Library. You will come over and hit this little plus sign, and you then can navigate to wherever it is that you have saved your file, and then you'll be able to open it and it will be visible to you here. Okay? The file that you'll be opening today is called Segment Sewing. That's what I've named it in Blackboard. And obviously that is going to correlate to what we are doing today. What I want you to know when you open this up is I am using I'm using both views, which is that dual screen, so I can see my 3D view, which indicates 3 pattern pieces, and then my 2D view, of course, matches that, and I've got 3 pattern pieces. What I want you to do is remember using your transform pattern tool, you can do a marquee selection. When you select over here, it's also going to select over in your 3D window. And I'm just going to move that up and just a little bit out of the way for a moment. Now, we haven't talked very much about this vertical toggle menu, and I'm not going to go but so deep because we just don't have a great deal of time. But you'll see here that you've got a button that looks like a person, which is your avatar display. And as we're working, you may find that you want to hide your avatar, and you'll see this one is defaulting to show avatar. So if I click it, I can hide her. If I click it, I can bring her back. Okay. The option next to it is actually what I want you to turn on, which is your show arrangement points. And you'll know that you've done that correctly when it looks like she has a case of the blue measles. All right, she's got blue dots all over her body. These are arrangement points, and they're going to help us just sort of align these pattern pieces to her body. So to begin moving these pattern pieces, I need to just click off because I don't want them all selected. And I'm going to click the piece that's going to sit on her front. Okay? And while that's selected, I'm just going to move it down a little bit. And you'll see as you just hover over her body, you're going to see a little shadow. And it's going to align with whatever dot you're sitting on top of. And you want to just pick the best choice. You may find that none of these feel absolutely perfect. You just want them to be the best choice possible because as we sew these together and then we simulate, you'll get better results if the simulation doesn't have to move the pattern pieces too far. Wonky things can happen if you pull something too hard or they have to travel a great distance. And so in this case, I think this arrangement point looks best. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. And you'll see if you right click and hold and navigate around, okay, that looks like a pretty reasonable fit for her body. I'm going to do the next one, which is the sleeve. And I'm just going to hover, and you see again, it gives you a little preview. And I think that arrangement point makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that one there. I'll come back and click on the back view. And once again, I'll find an arrangement point that works, and I'll go ahead and click it. Okay. Now, this is sort of dual purpose. I find this particularly helpful for us merchandisers who don't have a great deal of sewing experience. Maybe you have 0 construction experience, but you'll get a sense once it's placed closer to her body where the sewing needs to take place. Okay. So for instance, I know that the sides of this garment, which align here and here, need to be sewn together. I need to close the sleeve underneath. I need to attach the sleeve, and then I need to attach the high point of the shoulder to the front and the back, okay? And to do that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and actually I'll just go to a 2D view so you can see more clearly at a large scale what it is that I'm doing. And so if I look at this pattern piece, you're going to see that it's very simplistic. It's comprised mostly of paths, so anchor, path, anchor. And what I want you to think of, I'm using this as a reference because that's what we call it in Illustrator. In the world of CLO, these are segments, and this is one solid segment. So to sew this to this solid segment, I'm going to use my segment sewing tool. okay? And all I need to do and all I need to take into consideration is I need to think directionally how this is being sewn together. So if I were to sew this top to bottom, this is being sewed to this piece, so this would also be top to bottom. So if I click near the top to set my segment, I need to click near the top on this one, okay? You'll see that this works perfectly because I get these perfect straight dashed lines versus if I were to come down here, this would indicate that the sewing would be crossed and that would not work, okay? So I'm gonna click up here, all right? So those are now sewn together. I'm going to connect this piece to this, okay? And again, you see those don't cross, so that's great. All right, I'm gonna do the underside of the arm to the other underside of the arm, okay? And again, these are all just very, very simple segments. Now I come to where the sleeve would be attached to the armholes. And this becomes more complicated because A, I've got an additional segment, one segment, two segment, and then of course I'm connecting to two separate pieces. So in this case, I'm going to grab my free sewing tool and I can now click, and I'm just hovering, I'm not holding anything, but I'm going to click at the end. And then to connect this to two separate pieces, I need to hold shift. So holding shift, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to click and click. And again, you need to think about the direction that you sew. So I went from this direction to this, which would align from here all the way over here. And again, you see nothing is crossing over, okay? Now I'm going to go back to my dual view and I can preview the sewing here. I'm going to hold my right click and just navigate around. And you can see that none of these stitches are crossing over. Okay, so this looks like this should work really well. There shouldn't be any issues. But I only have one half of my t-shirt. I don't want to recreate this. Okay, I want you to think back to Illustrator where we created one half of the t-shirt and then we used a guide to reflect it and duplicate it, and we let the program do most of the work. We are doing the exact same thing here, okay? So I need to select these pieces. So I'm going to grab my transform pattern tool. I'm going to do a marquee selection to grab all of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose this option here called symmetric pattern with sewing. Okay, it's going to duplicate the pattern and it's also going to remember the sewing that I've already put in place. Okay. You'll see that it's duplicated and I just need to find a place to paste it down. Okay, I need a little more room here. Need a little more room, Chloe. A little more room, Chloe. All right. And I'll just place it here. Okay. And now you'll see that that has also been placed on my avatar. If I right click, I can see that the sewing is in place. I can see it's approximately where I would want that on the body, but I can see that it's not sewn together here and it's not sewn together here. So I need to do that manually. I'm going to go back to my 2D view. Okay. And I again see that these are segments. So I'm just going to click off and I'm going to grab my segment sewing tool and I'm going to sew the front to the front, and the system's working. It's working slow. All right. And I'm going to do the back to the back. Okay. And I'll go ahead and turn my dual view on so I can just ensure that it looks like I did what I was supposed to. And I'm going to go ahead and simulate and cross my fingers that I did it right. Okay, great. It's still draping. I'm going to go ahead and look at just my 3D view so I can appreciate the work that I just did. I'll zoom in a little bit and you'll see here that everything, I can look underneath her arm. Okay, all of these seams have been finished. Everything looks really, really nice. Okay, again, if you work on this and something just isn't falling the way you expect it to, you can come in and pull on it a little bit. Just try to smooth out any little issues. Okay, but you really shouldn't encounter anything dramatic unless you have sewn something incorrectly. All right, I'll be back in a moment. We'll actually run through the same process with a more complicated garment, and we will focus on more free sewing.